Welcome to Bay Area Psychology. Tonight, we turn our attention to a special loss, the consequence for women of losing our mothers at an early age. Tonight's topic, Motherless Daughters, comes from the title of Hope Edelman's best-selling book. To write her book, Miss Edelman went across the country speaking to motherless women of all ages. Hundreds of women contacted her to share the impact of this early loss on their development as women, mothers, and wives. Her research revealed that children who lose parents early in life respond in one of two ways. They develop a sense of fatalism or find the motivation to continue forward. Well, later, we'll review a list of famous women who found the determination to succeed later in life. Susan Hunt from the Center for Living with Dying will be offering a 16-week group designed to facilitate healing for these women. We are fortunate she's able to be with us tonight. Welcome, Sue. I appreciate you making the time to join us this evening. I wondered what had attracted you to working with this particular special population.
Well, it's interesting. I've been at the center for a lot of years, and we've done a lot of support groups. And occasionally we do a special group for a special population that is particularly calling us, and we get enough to do a support group. But we got a phone call from an individual asking us if we were going to do a Motherless Daughters group. That was the first I'd heard of the book. Okay. And as we pursued it and as I read the book, I was really aware that there was a need for this. And so we decided to go ahead with it.
Okay. And has your group actually begun?
No, it starts March 5th.
Okay. All right, so we have a little time. So yes. Those of you watching tonight who may have relate to this topic may be able to participate by calling the Center for Living with Dying. Excellent. Well, I also have read Miss Edelman's book a couple of different times and found it very helpful and very moving, and have recommended it from time to time to my clients. She did have several things that she felt women have in common who have lost their mothers early in life. Let's take a look at a graphic with a few. The first trait that women seem to have in common who have lost their mothers early in life is a keen sense of isolation from their family. They have a sharp awareness of their own mortality, and recognizing relationships can be impermanent. There's overall a feeling of being stuck developmentally at an age when their mother died. Let's take a look at the first of these, a keen sense of isolation from family. What do you think Miss Edelman meant by that?
It's hard to interpret what she meant particularly, but we find that individuals who in a family situation, when there's a loss, everyone in the family is grieving differently.
Okay.
Everyone is affected differently, and everyone is deeply affected. Very often, particularly children, are confused by the reactions of their parents or the people who are caring for them. Okay. And so they are very often shut out from what's really going on. Okay. And don't know how to express what they're feeling.
In fact, I can recall someone I was working with at one point whose mother died, and actually she went into the hospital, and she was sent to relatives who lived quite a distance away, and so was not able to participate actually in the closure. And is that common for people?
Yes, or sent to the neighbors. Okay. You know, children are supposed to be quote unquote protected from the grief. And what happens is that they get the feeling then that it's maybe worse than they really thought. They don't understand what's going on. They need to communicate and need to have someone communicate with them.
Well, I know in her case she felt, maybe punished.
Yeah.
That somehow maybe it was her fault.
Yeah.
And that's why she had been sort of banished from the family. How about the second thing she'd mentioned was awareness of our own mortality and recognizing early in life then that relationships can be impermanent. Is this something you have heard from women?
Absolutely. Children grow up believing life is forever. That is the expectation. And then suddenly this person who was such a significant part of their life is taken away. And they realize all of a sudden that maybe it could happen to them, it could happen to Daddy, it could happen to a brother. Okay. Very, very strong. It's a surprise to people.
Okay, so does that sense of impermanence continue on into adulthood? I mean, do they continue sometimes to have fear of loss of their significant other?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The fear of loss, the ability to trust is very heavily affected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, trust that if you say you're going to be there, you actually are. Okay.
Because they know that you don't have control over it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering in terms of choice, whether children really, do they understand that their mothers don't necessarily have a choice about leaving?
Well, small children probably not. I think older children do. But again, there's an ambivalence. There's often an anger at mother for leaving. And it's not necessarily logical. Your feelings aren't necessarily logical in grief.
That's so true.
And so there can be both feelings at the same time. The feeling of mother not being able to control, and so nobody can control how long they live. But also the feeling of mother left me, mother abandoned me.
Okay. Yeah, and if mother chose to do that, someone else might also. Okay, and the last one was the overall feeling of being stuck developmentally at the age when their mother died. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I think what happens, particularly if you're close with your mother is teaching you, a daughter and a mother have such a fine bond that if that is broken, then a lot of the things that you would expect to have learned from your mother and expect to have been able to communicate with her are stopped.
Okay.
And that can really stop you for a while.
Well, I'm thinking too that I know a lot of children, even if it's not necessarily mother loss, but who have disruptive childhoods, will often at some point take on the responsibility for self-parenting and begin to teach themselves. And so will often master tasks less well than if somebody had actually showed it to them and somebody had actually taught them. So there's always that vague sense of I'm not quite competent, or there's like a level of skill deficit here that that maybe other people don't have. So that's what came to mind for me when you said that, which is maybe they stop getting the direct teaching and begin that process of figuring it out.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Children, I think, don't know what they don't know, and they decide that they're going to, a young woman can decide that she's going to take control of her life. We're all encouraged to do that.
Okay.
And move ahead, and then suddenly begin to discover that she's making blunders because she moved ahead and did some things and doesn't really understand or have the background to do all the things she thought she did.
So I guess the other thought that comes to me is the idea of being a almost like feeling like a false sense of self, or feeling sort of inadequate or fake, like people may find out that I'm not everything that they may think I am. Because the flip side of this is self-sufficiency. They're kind of growing up, well, I need to take care of business.
And we're encouraged to do that. We're encouraged to step out and be independent. And we want to, but we don't know how to.
Okay.
And we don't have anyone to go back to find that independence, or to get the details of how we do this.
Right.
And every time we make a mistake, then our self-esteem slips.
Right.
And we become very vulnerable.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Let's take a look at our next list of characteristics for these women. A tendency to look for nurturing in relationship with partners who cannot possibly meet our needs. Awareness that early loss has shaped, toughened, even freed us, helping us make changes and decisions we might not have made otherwise. And pulling together a female self-image of our own. Let's take the first one, a tendency to look for nurturing in relationships that can't provide them. Have you seen that sort of experience?
Oh, absolutely. I think that there are two issues. If you had a nurturing mother, then you come to expect that, and you know what it feels like. And so when it's gone, you miss it tremendously and you look for it. And there's the other side of the coin, the child who didn't have a nurturing mother. Either she died very young, or she was not particularly nurturing as a mother. And when that happens, there's that hunger. You see other people getting the nurturing that you would like to have had, and so you begin to look for people who will do that, and the need is huge. And you can't possibly have it all met in one individual, and yet that need is valid and large within you, so it's hard to deal with.
So maybe to other people, someone in this situation might look particularly needy, or might have just a great deal of expectations in a relationship, which may be greater than the situation can provide. So then I would think there would be a sense of disappointment, kind of a vague sense of that life is disappointing.
That you've been cheated, that you've been left out, that you haven't gotten what you really deserve. And a needy person is difficult to be around, and yet the needs are not something you can turn off, even if you're aware of them.
Right. Yeah, because the void is still there. The other one is awareness that early loss shaped, toughened, and helped us make decisions we might not have made otherwise.
You do that. Regardless of the outcome, you do because you're forced to. And sometimes you make wise decisions and it works out well. You're stronger in a way and yet more vulnerable in a way, because then if you make the mistakes, then there is that sense of failure.
Well, there may be that sense too of not necessarily having a large enough net to catch us too. I mean that.
And we put on the front of being so self-assured, and yet we know that there's nobody behind us. You're right, the net isn't there.
Okay. We're going to take a break for a moment. When we return, we will review and honor some women who lost their mothers early in childhood. Dorothy Wordsworth lost her mother at birth, Harriet Beecher Stowe at 5, George Eliot at 16, Jane Addams at 2, Marie Curie at 11, Gertrude Stein at 14, Dorothy Parker at 5, Margaret Mitchell at 19, and Eleanor Roosevelt at 8 years old. Welcome back. I want to take a few minutes, and I wanted to acknowledge some very famous women who went on to accomplish a great deal in their lives, despite the fact that they lost their mother